If you've got a 3D printer, you can make almost anything, including things that were not meant to exist. Jewelry that hangs in midair, shining, shimmering holograms, nuts, magnets, even shards of glass, permanently yet seamlessly fused into plastic. I even printed the shirt I'm wearing right now. It says so right on the shirt. I'm going to show you 5 easy 3D printing hacks that unlock otherwise impossible projects. And by easy, I mean cursed, and by hacks, I mean eldritch sorcery that man was not meant to know. And neither were the ladies, or the cyborgs, today at Voidstar Lab. Before we plunge into 3D printing's darkest depths, I must warn you, you will need to be familiar with your printer and your slicer. If you're looking for a more accessible build, especially if you've got a younger hacker in training to build it with, consider a ready-to-make project from today's sponsor, KiwiCo. Each month, KiwiCo releases awesome new hands-on projects complete with custom components, high-quality instructions, and a magazine bursting with bonus experiments. When I was a kid, I loved all kinds of science sets and craft boxes, and if KiwiCo existed back then, they would have melted my mini mind. This is KiwiCo's glowing pendulum tinker box, and it'll have you build an LED-tipped double pendulum that traces a chaotic path as it whips across the glow-in-the-dark board. Then you turn the board into a glowing maze and use 2 strings to steer the LED by hand. This is the same operating principle as my Delta printer. That's math in disguise, the best kind of math. But what's in this packet? This is citric acid for the bonus experiment, making invisible ink that's only revealed under the pendulum's UV light. Then we got one of KiwiCo's Eureka crates, a build-your-own pinball machine. This is not like shoebox skee-ball. These are authentic spring-loaded drop targets, a working mechanical multi-ball, and even a ramp that snakes high above the board, and you get to make it all yourself. The designers left plenty of room to invent your own obstacles like rails and electronics, and I know this because the assembly guide has an entire section talking about the design process. I have never seen a kit show how much forethought and dead ends go into making a great project. KiwiCo offers 9 lines for all interests and ages, from stimulating sensory experiences for newborns to challenging missions for teens. Sign up for a subscription at kiwico.com/Zack and use code Zack to get 50% off your first surprise. Or browse the shop and handpick the exact project you want. I want to learn science while I make real ice cream. I don't even need the science. Speaking of cool, behold today's first trick. Printing carbon fiber, but like carbon fiber. This is Gertrude 3D's Ninja Fidget Spinner, and the keychain size version blew up on TikTok a few months ago. But mine has something that no 3D print is supposed to have: a carbon fiber weave. In the non-printed real world, carbon fiber usually looks like woven fabric because it is. The individual fibers are knitted into a mesh called a twill and stabilized with epoxy. But the carbon fibers in filament have to fit through the nozzles, so they're ground or chopped, and there's no way for the printer to reassemble them into that iconic checkerboard. Yet here we are, because I cheated. This isn't a wrap, it's not a sticker, and it's not even carbon fiber. This is just regular old plain pure PLA. It's extra black for better ninjutsu, but there is not a fiber in sight. So how did I do it? Well, here's a hint. Only the bottom surface has the pattern, and so does the build plate. This plate's plastic surface is engraved to look like carbon fiber, and that transfers to anything printed on it. If you're curious, the other side has this faceted crystalline surface that also makes anything printed on it look really, really cool. Well, if you've ever used a textured build plate, you have seen a jumbo version of the same effect. The nozzle's pressure forces molten filament into every nook and cranny, which perfectly reproduces that sloppy, spattered surface, just in negative. If you zoom in even further, you can see the bottom layer even captured a hairline scratch on the plate. Let's see how far we can push this. These spinning shurikens, shiny starbursts, and spectacular spectra spring solely from super small scratches on this special spring steel surface. Zack from the future here. It's not a shuriken, it's a kunai. I would have failed my ninja exam if someone hadn't stuck a bunch of mirrors to the ceiling. If you looked at this film under a powerful microscope, like a million times more powerful than my piece of crap, you would see a maze of angled ridges just hundreds of nanometers wide. Visible light has a wavelength of, what are the odds, a few hundred nanometers. So this so-called diffraction grating will send slightly different wavelengths, which is to say colors, bouncing off at wildly different angles. In other words, it gets these shimmering colors not by actually being these colors, but by reflecting every other color so that it misses your eye. These shapes and colors are formed by nothing but the shape of the build surface. It's not technically a true hologram, although it's what people call like holographic Pokemon cards. The reason why is way beyond this video. Even though this filament is as pitch black as Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway's parachute pants, it's still reflective. So when the printer squirts it onto a reflection hologram, the bottom layer becomes another rainbow-licious reflection hologram. The only limit, apart from your imagination, is surfaces have to actually touch the bed to pick up the pattern. But check out this pencil case by Sotank. This print's flat, so when I fold it into a 3D shape, the holographic diffraction magic wraps around the entire shebang. I've linked these plates along with all the other products I feature in the description, and I do make affiliate bucks if you decide to buy them. But this is the only one of today's techniques that needs a specific accessory. In fact, you can zhuzh up your bottom layers using nothing but your slicer itself. Just go to your print settings and change the top and bottom layer infill patterns. Octagram spiral is dramatic and prismatic, Archimedean chords makes this mystifying hypno spiral, and Hilbert curve looks like a Hilbert curve, but as far as space-filling fractals go, this one's pretty zesty. Chords in particular adds this subtle spun metal finish that's actually really useful for silk filament. Silk shiny sheen only shows on the sidewalls, and this allows you to just make the whole print look more consistent. I demonstrated this on Thin Air 3D's full-scale reproduction of the Pendant of Life from Legends of the Hidden Temple, the game show that was literally my entire childhood. But if we roll back the clock, we'll see this print also sneakily demonstrates the second curse technique, capturing shit in prints. As far as production processes go, 3D printing is really weird. Like when you shoot an injection mold, you're firing raw material into a metal block. When you run a CNC job, you're carving down from the outside in. But a 3D printer constructs the object layer by layer, so the inside of your thing stays exposed for most of the process. Nothing stops you from pausing the print halfway and dropping crap into the half-finished print, and the remaining layers will seal it in, destroying all the evidence. Not only does this keep the surface seamless, it permanently secures almost any object inside almost any print without needing any glue, any fasteners, or any openings for the thing to work itself free. This technique is super easy to do. Just model a pocket barely bigger than the thing you want to embed, slice it as normal, and then in your print preview, set a pause just before the printer caps off the void. That is the same layer where it bridges over it. You run the job, wait for the printer to halt, move the extruder out of the way, and slip in the payload. In this case, it's some disc magnets to hold the two halves of the pendant together. Remember to kneel down and make absolutely sure the object is sitting flush. If it's too high, the nozzle is going to catch on it, and if you're lucky, rip the print off the plate. Doesn't matter how many Legends of the Hidden Temple pendants you have, you're not getting any extra lives. Finally, we resume the job, and a few minutes later, you can't tell I've done anything at all. If your nozzle is steel or diamond, or if your extruder has a magnetic probe mount, your extruder can actually suck the magnets and hardware back out of the hole before the filament can trap them inside. If magnet sucking and nut plucking are causing up-f***ing, you can just add a drop of super glue and let it set before you finish the print. That will also keep your insert from rattling around if the pocket is a bit too loose. But honestly, this can be used for almost all hardware. Embedded nuts are far stronger than tapping straight into plastic, and they're cheaper and easier to use than heat-set inserts. The ability to embed arbitrary doodads lets you run all kinds of stuff that just can't be made with any other method, or at least can't be done well. For instance, Wyatt George's tapeless Gridfinity window bins has you drop in a glass slide in a plastic retainer bar. It's actually Wyatt Garoge instead of George. Sorry, Wyatt. That's right, you can drop prints into other prints. We are going to abuse that in a minute. My Gridfinity window bins had you mount the glass with double stick tape, but that dumb decision made the front fall off full bins. Bit of a design flaw. So by sliding the slide in mid-print, Wyatt's design permanently solidly nails it down, leaving no way for it to escape. Some other embeddable ideas are RFID stickers, keys, or if you want the Secret Service black bagging your dog, legal tender. In the center. In my Chocolate Gridfinity episode, I squirted peanut butter directly into a half-printed chocolate cube to make a custom Reese's peanut butter cup. And let me tell you, this would have worked a lot worse if I had done this in PLA. But as I alluded to before, possibly the cursedest thing you can drop into a print is another print. This is the Squishy Insides bracelet by BMXorcist and Blonde of Blarg. The band is flexible TPU and the beads are being printed in hard PLA. I'm going to pause the print, mash the band in there, and hit resume. Now I have a combination flexible and rigid print with zero gluing, zero fasteners, and this doesn't need any supports. This is the simplest form of curse technique number 3. 2 polymers, 1 print. This one has squirting too. If you have a multi-material printer, you may have run multiple colors of the same filament. You might even have tried a support filament like PVA for PLA and HIPS for ABS. Most likely you haven't used this feature at all and it's just been rusting away since you impulse bought it. I know who watches my fucking videos. But nothing stops you from mixing and matching completely different materials in the same model. Not even the fact that those materials are incompatible. For instance, PLA and TPU. I'm gonna run both halves of this bracelet at the same time. My E3D tool changer has multiple extruders, so I have one of them feeding PLA and the other TPU. Here's another way to do this. Rayner's multi-material hinged roll-up box experiment interlaces stripes of TPU and PLA to permanently weave the 2 materials together. This opens tons of cool options. Flexible hinges that never wear out, bouncy bumpers for shatter resistance, and super light wearables with no fasteners to weigh you down. The important part is that since these materials don't stick very well, you gotta make that mechanical connection to physically lock them together. But going back to that support filament, if you've never used it before, soluble and breakaway supports are actually really useful. This lets you print supports flush with the model for a flawless undercarriage, and I love a flawless undercarriage. But what if I told you, you probably already have a really great support filament? Regular old PETG. This is the Flying Benchy 2.0 by MW Rocket Boy, and printing this thing normally is an absolute nightmare. These broad wings and delicate propellers need tons of support, but it'll be almost impossible to remove those supports without damaging the print. I literally pulled this off by setting the support clearance to 0 and printing the supports in PETG. PETG and PLA can easily break apart, leaving a beautiful bottom surface and super crisp details. If you have a multi-extruder printer like my tool changer or Prusa XL, there's no special setup to use this technique. The 2 materials do need different bed temperatures, so you could add a raft to make sure only PETG touches the plate. You also want to print the wipe tower with only 1 material and avoid wiping into the print, because these materials don't stick to each other and the print and the tower will fail if they don't stick to themselves. You should really only use this technique with supports on the plate. Print-to-print supports double the number of PLA to PETG contact points and thus the odds of failure. For instance, look at this bench. It's not a benchy, it's just a bench. While the bottom rails look great, the backrest supports came apart and kind of took the rest of the print with it. But this technique does actually work with a single extruder multi-material setup like the Bamboo AMS. Your printer is much more likely to jam if it ever fails to completely poop out the PETG. You might have to enlarge your poops. It's a bamboo thing. There's even a filament that combines the 2 for a unique effect. Sneak peek of the next Every Filament video, by the way. This is Phantom Filament, and it has a PETG core wrapped in a contrasting, transparent PLA jacket. Even when they pass through the nozzle and get smeared across your model, these 2 materials never mix. So it gives the print this deep, shadowy finish that changes color as you vary the angle and light. Our 4th curse technique combines the previous 3. We're going to pause the print partway to insert a foreign object, but this time, the plastic is going to fuse it in place using the same principle as the holographic build plate. Forbidden art number 4 is printing onto fabric mesh. This is Billy Rubin's geometric necklace, but it looks more like a bunch of scattered separate shapes, because, you know, it kind of is. The magic happens after layer 3. We are going to pause the print, take a square of this thin gauzy fabric called Tulle, and use some powerful bar magnets to stretch it tightly over the entire bed. Then we go right back to printing fabric be darned. That's a pun. The nozzle won't snag or melt the mesh. Instead, hot plastic should flow through and behind the threads, embedding the mesh right into the print. The tool will bind those separate shapes together into this hybrid of plastic and fabric that looks almost like it's levitating. This also opens some crazy creative project concepts outside of fashion. Attell Design created this fold-up print-and-play speaker cover. I'm no audiophile, but if the material is thin enough to let liquid plastic pass through it, I don't think it's going to stand in the way of your acoustics. But if you really want to wear your love of printing on your sleeve or your chest or wherever, our 5th and final curse technique is for you. We are gonna print a t-shirt. Not like print an entire shirt, like print a design on a regular t-shirt. I suppose you could print the whole shirt out of like chainmail or NASA metamaterial or something, but that wouldn't be cursed so much as excruciatingly time-consuming and also excruciatingly excruciating because it'll pluck each of my individual chest hairs from its follicle. I heavily based this technique off this video by French 3D printerista Heliox. You will need one blank cotton t-shirt, one reel of low durometer flexible filament in a contrasting opaque color, one roll of double stick carpet tape, a spring steel build plate, and a 3D printer, ideally with a cantilevered bed. As much as I despise NinjaFlex TPE, the way it melts into a runny gel makes it the ideal choice for this particular project. Do you remember that roll-up box? We are going to mechanically connect filament and fabric the same way by physically weaving them together. First, turn the shirt inside out, apply carpet tape with the build plate, and carefully press it into place just under the neckline. Make sure you put it high on the shirt, higher than you think it should be. The rear of the build plate should face the neck, and you want that fabric to be taut but not stretched. If it's too loose or too tight, the printed bits will make it bunch up and just look weird. So then you want to install the plate on the printer with the t-shirt still attached and tuck as much of that extra fabric below the bed as you can. If you can't get enough fabric out of the way, you want to edit your printer's start and end G-code to prevent the nozzle from trying to plow through fabric. You want it to only drop once it's in the middle of the plate. Finally, level the bed with the t-shirt in place so the nozzle's tip lightly presses into the fabric. If your printer touches the plate to auto level, like my Tool Changer's clicky probe or Prusa's load cell, you should be ready to roll. If it uses a magnetic or piezoelectric probe like a Prusa Mark III or a Bamboo X1, you're gonna have to do this by hand. As for our print settings, we want that bottom layer as hot as the filament can handle, and we want to turn the bed heater off altogether. We're going to slow the bottom layer way down, extrude it at triple flow, and print the rest at 120% with 100% infill. I took all these settings and created some Prusa slicer profiles, and you can download those on my Patreon. They are not behind a paywall. You don't have to support me to download them, but you know, might as well at this point, right? Make sure the bottom layer is getting mashed down so hard it's visibly getting smushed into the fabric. When the second layer goes down, the overpressure should jam it into the partially insinuated plastic and allow the rest of the layers to print as normal. Keep an eye on that job the whole time in case the extruder snags or that floppy filament backs up and goes haywire. Don't go overboard with the thickness here. You only have to print enough material to get a strong color. Barely a millimeter should do the job. Carefully peel the shirt off the carpet tape and be fashionable. If this were a normal shirt, I could have just thrown it in the laundry, but a single trip through the washer and dryer is going to tear this TPU straight off. This is fast fashion, folks. Still, the ability to crank out professional-looking custom t-shirts in a matter of hours, it can come in really handy, like at the Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest this coming weekend. Check when this video came out, you know, don't be a f***ing idiot. Come meet me in my home turf, Loveland, Colorado, links below, and while you're down there, as in the description, not up there as in the mountains, you'll also find links to all the models, filaments, and accessories I featured today. If you'd like to see more wild printing techniques, exotic filaments, and strange new models, hit subscribe. And if you'd like a mind-boggling new project every single month to build with someone you care about, you can sign up at kiwico.com/Zack. The world of 3D printing is a big one, and I couldn't cross and/or plunge its horizons and/or depths without our generous and/or sexy patrons. As thanks for putting filament and/or food in my extruders and/or face, our patrons are going to get a private stream while I will answer your 3D printing questions while we assemble this custom bolt-action Nerf blaster for our next episode. Each one of these videos, I pick and shout out 3 lab scientist supporters, and today's are Stephen Nunn, the Bee Gragu, and Sean Kingsbury. Our clever, classy connoisseurs of the craft of creating crazy contraptions, called collaborators, contains the suits around our fun, the benevolent misanthrope, Turner Zay, Microwave, SXP, Bitrot, Schleppy the Schwagster, Big Gus, Chuck Me Harder Baby, Phil McCaffrey, and ZomboDB. I've hidden their names somewhere in this episode and made them permanent parts of Voidstar Lab using tragically conventional but blessedly reliable printing techniques. Speaking of unconventional, our lab assistant supporters support this channel and allegedly exist. Thank you, Karanamon, not a Digimon, Transright, 6A, 6F, 656, E75, Sorceress MLE, Nova Ren, Craft Computing, Kevin Sumner, Powerful, CCH, Sunburnt Cat, Blammo, John Loves Jen, Lord Gary is displeased. Amanishi, Timor has had an intervention and is doing much better now. I respect your courage and hope you have a smooth recovery. Bob Dobbington, Eddie, Martin Titonium, Cameron Ogletree, Cody, Jason, The Cuttlefish, Sticks Like the River Not the Band, probably not 3 raccoons in a trench coat, Circle Zero, Bude, J. Red Rum. Haley Kerman, Kink Shaming Walrus, Daily Baby, Jiggle My Puffs, The Haunted Leaky Water Heater Upstairs, Burn It, Olive Robbins, Chorance, Lydia K, Travis Hippa, Kermit the OG Frog, Amira Hoom, Nuclear 314, Bill Schooler, Otis, Ray Hayes, Intravenous, Moonkin Xanthorian, Paul Gibbs, Viwatch, The Spelling of Ergobled, Zach Harvey, Dennis Kempen, DBD, Zap, Cruisin' Bill, Michael Creamer Jr., Aaron Steers, Thunder Chicken, Partial Eclipses, A Sharp, Pucker Up, Brown Eyes, Cliff Henning, Cameron McPherson, Varka, Mike Kelly, General Buck Turgidson, Stormby Design, Scroto Sagans, Acorn, Protagonist, Bryn, 6 foot, 5-figure Forlorn Wolf Schulte has outlasted Steven's 6 foot, 6-figure, 6-pack Schulte. Steve's dad, Onyx Plague, Max Luck is going to build that lamp. Do it! Do it. Brad Cox, VK2KTJ, Micah, Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace, Freedman. Even Bluetooth has a right to repair. Royanon99 and Urch. A Pretty Unicorn Emoji. Chris Floofy Kitsune. Period Clots. Good Suck. Zunda Wielder Vine Heater of Shrink. Robo Key Mao. Doom Crew Inc. Iron Rain. Rinri. Rusty Flute. SKL. Renaud Bataille. Talon Democratic Socialist. A Pretty Righteous Dude Dash Zack. Clayton Easley. Bradley Carter. Big Bird Tommy. What Goes Bump of the Night. Cacophony of Failure. Dr. Mrs. the Merman. Michael. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Evan Kinney. Trump Did Nothing Wrong. Slippy McToof. Zachary But Shorter. Urgay. Danny Devoid of Life. Shane Frederick. Socks McGox. Just Human Garbage. VPS Data. Robert the Bob. Dax Dastardly Seek Seth Checks. Quality Doggo. Call Sign Carrot. Joseph Ribka. Spire. Kevin DeGraff.
Yes!
Noah B. Johnson. Roger Pinkham of the Great Star Theater. The Earth is flat because it's 3D printed. Then why would they need a 3D printer? Checkmate, atheists. Incognito. Burn Duck 3. Robert Breeze. Boulder Creek Yard James. Ellis Swap the World. Editor's note. I recently learned this is a car thing and not a Linux thing. The Monk. Elite Giant. Juicy Legend. Drinker of Juicy Legendary Fruits. My Dog is a Bear. Good Lady Nat. Queen of Lemons. Victor of the Great Citrus Wars. Agent Maxwell. Vajelli. Travis Pocky. Quantumly Tingled. I think I changed my name to Lost Dryer Socks. Sorry to break it to you, but you actually changed your name to I think I changed my name to Lost Dryer Socks. Jamie, Granville Schmidt, and Land Jesus will die for your sins. Okay, fine, but 3 days later he's going to send a keep alive. The one who drops sinners for good is Lancifer. Thanks for watching, and may the darkest depths inspire your brightest ideas. I will see you in the future.